Okay, so one of the things that may come up if you are using Adobe Premiere is you might actually end up needing to use a photo. And sometimes, like, cause you'll be working on a project and somebody like, hey, will you put this photo in or this video or whatever? And so you'll say, yeah, I'll make sure that I get that photo in. But sometimes when you receive the photo from wherever you got it from, it doesn't quite fit the project. And I had taught a previous trick in one of the previous videos, which was to like hit scale to frame size. Sometimes that doesn't work either. So let's say I'm working on a video project, which I kind of am right now. And I've got this video project open that I'm working on. And let's say somebody wanted me to make sure I got this JPEG file down here in the lower left into it. It says building.jpg. That's a picture of Northside High School where I work as of the recording of this video. And so if I click and I drag that onto my timeline, there it is. And if I put the timeline over it, like you'll notice it doesn't fit. There's these two black areas on the outside of the video. So the aspect ratio of the photo doesn't match the aspect ratio of the video. In other words, the video has a certain, like its x-axis is this way, and its y-axis is that way, and those two things don't match, the photo and the video. So one of the tricks that I teach is if the photo is already like the right ratio, you can just right click, and I'll try to do it here, right click over it and hit scale frame to size, scale to frame size, and that'll make it fit. But when I do this for this particular photo, it doesn't work that way. And I'll show you what I mean. In fact, it made it even kind of smaller in there. Well, that's a problem that if we were to actually have video in the background, let's say I juxtaposed it over, somebody hit Control Z to undo that. Let's say I wanted that to be the overlay of this video that's going on right now. You notice that it's awkward. There's video in the background and then the picture is over that. Another thing that's worthy of note to point out is this is considered a video track, and whatever video track is on top is the one that's always on top in the actual preview pane. But I'm going to move it back to this part of the timeline, and I'm going to click the time indicator here. So I want the content of this photo to take up the whole screen, but that might mean that I might have to cut off the top and bottom. And the question is, well, how can you get this photo or its general gist to fill up the whole screen? That's when using the clip editor comes in handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this part of the project. And I double click. And notice it appears, and I'm going to move my head out of the way. It now appears in the clip editor here to the left. Well, one of the problems is we want this photo to take up the whole screen, but we also don't want to distort it either. So how do you handle this? Well, actually, what you can do with this photo is you can click Effect Controls, and you can pick motion and opacity. You can pick these things. And in particular, you click on position, and actually, because you can see, I'm going to move this down here, because the timeline is on here, it shows you what you're doing. What you can do at this point is there's position and there's scale. Position tells you like where it is on the X and Y axis and like its aspect ratio. But scale tells you how big it is. Now, the reason I love Adobe Premiere is because if I simply click scale and I hold down the click and I hit up, this changes over here. In fact, I'm going to do it. When I start scrolling up, notice it now takes up the entire screen, which is what I wanted it to do to begin with. So basically, it takes it from 100% and it made it 135%. Now, the video project doesn't go beyond the scope of this rectangle here. Now, you can bring it back down. Let's say I want to make it smaller. I click and I just scroll down. I can do the exact same thing the opposite direction too. I can make it as small as I want by clicking downward all the way till it's 0% of its normal size, and I can take it all the way up. And in this case, getting to about 134% took it so that its aspect ratio was the correct aspect ratio. So that's a way that you can take a photograph that wasn't big enough to fill the screen and make it big enough to fill the screen. You can do the exact same technique for video, but I'll make that a separate video tutorial on the page here. But that's how you do it, is you click there. And then once you've applied the changes, let's say we wanted it on the timeline farther back, we can just slide it over. And if we wanted to preview the video to make sure it's correct, which I always suggest you should do, is always preview it, make sure it's correct. Let's see. And notice if, let's say the photograph, it looks nice, it's where we want it to be, there you go. The other thing that you can do too is, if let's say you don't want it in that position, let's say you want to center Northside High School, what you can do is you can click and take it to the left, and notice, yep, you run out of real estate on that side of the photo. But let's say we wanted to keep moving it. The next thing we could do is we could make it even bigger, and we can see this position thing is very handy. So you can do an awful lot with this, and it's pretty sweet. You also, instead of just dragging it like what I'm doing, you can also input values. You can type that you want it 300%, like 300, and it'll do that for you. But that's how you can edit the aspect ratio of a photograph and even move its position. Let's say I wanted to move it up and down. Well, I just hover over that value. I click. I can hit down and I move it down. If I click and move it up, I move it up. I kind of would like it centered at this point. That's how you edit the aspect ratio, its scale, and its position so that it actually fits your video project.